You know, they're selling y'all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I back. Trust me, I back.
But I'm not impressed by your performance.
You'll do nothing. You'll do nothing. Shut your fucking mouth, you'll do nothing. You'll do fucking nothing. Not one of you will do nothing.
I'll tell you what, bro. You know, I was out there, I was fighting all the hitters, bro. You ain't fought no hitters.
Come on, guys. It's normal.
I'm not saying I would fight you. I would kill you.
John, do you think I'm just gonna sit there and let you kill me, John? I mean, really?
No, don't be scared, homie.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the fuck he wants.
I am gonna beat you into the living death. I mean, maybe that's your job, but where I come from, you know, people like that get slapped.
That's fucking illegal.
Nick Diaz, you just shook up the world. How's that feel?
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this is a simulated death match. And you haven't simulated anybody's death yet.
I said it last year. We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
What is the game plan going in against him?
The game plan is you go in there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, and come home with a pocket full of cash.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Everybody's on steroids. The whole UFC, everybody.
I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
Do you want to be a fighter? That is my question.
Any of you radio personalities think you want smoke? Call me Mr. You want smoke?
Yes. What is up? What is up? Mixed Combat Radio family, another daily edition of the show, live 10 p.m. in the UK, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. in the Pacific, every day, live on YouTube. Obviously, podcast form on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Hit the like button, share, subscribe. If you're listening on podcasts, leave a review. It's always helpful. And obviously on patreon.com/Mixed Combat Radio, help support the channel in any sort of financial way. And obviously, there's free ways. Like I said, like, sharing, subscribing, all free ways to do it. You can, though, if you want, go to patreon.com/Mixed Combat Radio, help support the show. For as low as $1 a month, you get extra podcasts a week, and just, you know, loads of other content. And again, supporting this channel, which is completely fan-driven. But yes, let's digress. Obviously, it is another show, so we're going to talk about all things boxing, all things MMA, and everything in between. Quickly, though, shout out to everyone in the chat. Andre Diakonu, Bayside Boxing, Louie, Wayne, Rabisky, Steven, Kyle, who else? Nija, Santiago, Lord Jacob, Leonard. I think Rob was here at one point, and now he's gone. Usual him. But let's get hyped. You know? It's not a huge day. I am going to obviously piggyback off a little bit of news that we dropped yesterday. Not really dropped, but that came out yesterday. News that broke midway through the show was obviously the Cris Cyborg versus Amanda Nunes news. We're going to talk about that again. We're going to sort of come back to it. Just give it a little more of a marquee topic position because obviously it broke mid-show, and I don't think we really talked about it as much as we should have. I obviously just didn't have enough real thoughts about it yet. You know, it was still very new. But yes, that's going to get sort of a marquee attraction over in the MMA side of the show. For boxing, it's obviously Tevin Farmer. He is the guy that is, even though it's been sort of a slow day, I think he has dominated the news cycle a little bit today just because of the lack of news, but that's also a good thing because it gives him more shine, and a guy that's never really got any shine. I can't wait to delve into that, him signing to Eddie Hearn and Matchroom USA in a co-promotional deal, and plus loads of other news and topics to get to. So hit the like button, share, subscribe like I've said. And quickly, Eric Cruz in the chat. What up, Eric Cruz? Great supporter there. But let's dive into it. Like I said, Tevin Farmer making I'm not going to say shocking, but it is kind of surprising because he was just on ESPN+. And now he's signed with Eddie Hearn, Matchroom USA, in a co-promotional deal with Lou Dibella, obviously, because Lou Dibella been his longtime promoter. Now going to be a DAZN property. Going to be interesting to see where he goes from here. I think his first fight against some guy, it's some awful name, like Lenny Tennyson or some awful name that no one really cares about. You know, a domestic level guy in the UK that, again, will lose to Tevin Farmer. We all know that. But I will say this. It's good to see at least a network, an entity, a conglomerate like Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, and DAZN, hopefully try to put some money behind Tevin Farmer. He's a guy that's always been lost in the shuffle, unfortunately. I believe him not getting the Gervonta Davis fight, whatever way you want to slice it, even though one of them is calling out MMA fighters and fighters in another weight class, while the other guy who has the belt that he lost due to missing weight is calling him out. I just don't think Davis wants to fight, just me personally. But if you're Tevin Farmer, you can't get Gervonta Davis. Miguel Burchell is off in Cancun fighting guys on a Bum of the Month tour. What do? You go with a network that's going to give you some money. And so I don't blame him for that, even though obviously his first fight isn't that great or isn't even good at all. Louis saying, how good is Tevin Farmer, Matt? I'll be honest, haven't seen hardly any of him over here in the UK. I think he's really good. He's definitely a top 5 fighter in that division. I think he's a really good, elusive boxer. I mean, he is that style. Potential lunatic talking about his opponents and a European champion, big puncher but limited, come forward guy. James Tennyson, thank you, Bayside Boxing, is an awful opponent for this fight. Leonard, come on. Saying, James Tennyson, I'm calling a possible shocker. Tennyson KO win. No. Come on, Leonard. I was with you in the chat earlier. That is bad. Tennyson has proven a lot. It says potential lunatic. He has. I mean, I've watched a little bit of his fights here and there. I forget who he fought on. Let me look up his resume very quickly, just so I remember the exact fight I watched live. Was it Declan Garrity or whatever his name is? It might have been that fight. Was that the one I'm thinking of? Yes, that one. I mean, he, again, I think he's a fun fighter to watch, but again, this is a showcase. This is on a card. This is on the Billy Joe Saunders Demetrius Andrade card. I think it's just card filler. You have Katie Taylor versus Cindy Serrano on that card. You have Scott Quigg on that card. You have Kid Galahad on that card. I think it's another card filler. And again, you put him in prime or co-headline status under probably the best fight you've made thus far this year if you're Matchroom USA, which is Billy Joe Saunders versus Demetrius Andrade. So I think it's smart to sort of put maybe a guy you put some money behind like Tevin Farmer on that card as well in a showcase performance. I think a guy that's limited like Tennyson will come forward, get pieced up, get outboxed, and you're going to see really the level of footwork and defensive acumen that Tevin Farmer has really be displayed here, in my opinion. But definitely, this should be a showcase. But I think, again, it's a good pickup if you're Eddie Hearn DAZN. If you're Tevin Farmer, I think it's a good move to make. It's a network that is trying to do a lot, that doesn't have a lot of pieces, so therefore you become an integral piece to this company. And I think that's something that he has never been, and that would be nice. Moving on, though, breaking news, as always, right before the show. Victor Ortiz versus John Molina Jr. finalized for September 30th, PBC on FS1. Old man fighting an old man. This fight was probably relevant, 5 years ago, let's say? Maybe 4. And I hope that they just put a bunch of prospects under this fight, hoping that a guy like Victor Ortiz, that name, still draws in some viewership for this event, and you hopefully get those viewers, those casuals. Casuals using a loose term there right now. Vaguely casual, obviously more of the hardcore casual variant. If they're watching a PBC on FS1 card, hopefully they see some prospects that they haven't seen before. And about the fight itself, I think John Molina should win it. I think he is less faded, less of a shop-worn fighter at this point. I think Victor Ortiz, even though he has flashes of really good combinations, he still doesn't have this athleticism like he used to. Has been up and down, has not been active. It is what it is. But again, hope that prospects are under it. And at least we can say this. It's not on Fox. It's on FS1. They're not putting another Andre Berto, Devin Alexander type of fight on one of the biggest cable networks around. Instead, relegating it to what should be on an FS1 card. And hopefully this is like a Friday night event. This is not a Saturday event. That's what I hope. I doubt it, though. But it is. Oh, whoa. Sunday card. It's a Sunday card. Oh, I'm okay with that then. Little Sunday card action. Those are usually fun. And I'm okay with not having the greatest fights on a Sunday when I'm just sitting in, hanging around, being lazy. But moving on to some other news. This one a little more disappointing for us fans. Cecilia Braekhus no longer fighting on the Canelo Golovkin card. It's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. It's mainly due to them not being able to find an opponent, allegedly. So at least it's not her being hurt or anything, serious of that nature. It's just they can't find an opponent this soon, I would say, because her name being linked to this card was only like a week ago. And now that's, her officially being no longer linked to that card, I'm okay with that because I wasn't expecting her to be on the card, and now that she's off and there's never an opponent named to begin with, it's not going to be that much of a shock, to be honest, for her not to be there. Though it is unfortunate just to not have her in that prime slot to really get that exposure. She is still the first female fighter ever to be shown on HBO, even though I think a lot of people probably would say that she didn't do well in that fight. She may have even lost that fight. It is what it is. Let me see. Yes, I think this is the last piece of news. No, sorry. 2 pieces of news before we head into our midway portion of the show, which, like I've said on the last show, and I'm going to keep doing it, we're going to take boxing callers after the boxing topics and the boxing portion of the show, and then MMA callers after the MMA portion. I liked splitting it up yesterday. I thought that was fun. It just added a little bit of a change of pace midway through the show. I like that. So we're going to do that again. So 2 more topics. Again, if you want to get in, call in 323-870-4051. Or if you're international, email me, mixsummitradio@gmail.com. Real Nidra, just so you know, I emailed you a new call-in link since you're international. So the old one does not work. So if you want to call in today, check your email. There's a new link, just so you know. But let's digress to the news of the day. I believe this was announced in the press conference by way of Michael Benson. Announced Alberto Machado will defend his WBA regular super featherweight title against Yandel Evans, and Heather Hardy will rematch Shelly Vincent for the WBO featherweight belt on undercard of Jacobs versus Derevchenko October 27th. I like that. First off, Yandel Evans is sort of getting another shot at the top. I like that. He's a guy that hasn't lost since, who did he lose to? Why am I spacing on that? Oh, damn. Now I'm going to have to look it up. Bam. As I look it up right now. Alberto Machado, a guy that, even though he's only the regular champion, it's not like he isn't a full-on champion. He's a guy that I think could do something. Like, he's a fun, entertaining fighter. He's undefeated. There's a lot that could be had here. And by the way, it was Javier Fortuna. That's who Yandel Evans lost to. God, that was a great fight too. Well, not really a great fight. It was a one-rounder, but it was a pretty good one-rounder. For a 2-minute fight, that was fun. But it's nice to see him get the shot back. He's been undefeated since then. Alberto Machado definitely is a guy that I think, not necessarily we can get behind, or if you're if you're HBO, you really put a lot of money in. But he's sort of like the new Salido, the new Rocky Martinez. He's that sort of vein and that sort of ilk. So there's a market for that. You can sell that. And it's obviously great card filler as well for a fight like Jacobs versus Derevchenko. Heather Hardy versus Shelly Vincent, obviously off a rematch of a Fight of the Year contender, 2015, I want to say is when that was. Shelly has been undefeated since then. Heather Hardy has been up and down a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see if this will be a real sign that Heather Hardy has slipped a bit. She is, I think, 36, 35 years old. She's a little bit older, a little bit more wear and tear. So she's been fighting in MMA and in boxing too, and been just highly active. It's going to be interesting to see what this crossroads sort of rematch is like for Heather Hardy. And plus, just a fun fight. Like both of those fights, Machado versus Evans, and Hardy versus Vincent should be fantastic, fun matchups that we see on paper, so cannot wait to see that. Bayside Boxing and Jacobs can't beat Soviet fighters or that Soviet style, naming guys like Pirog, etc. Definitely going to be a fun fight. Like that Jacobs-Derevchenko fight, if you pick Derevchenko, I'm not going to laugh at you or think you're wrong. Like there's an argument for that. And also Jacobs has not looked amazing since the Triple G fight. He had that one moment, even in losing, his stock rose so high. And then since then has sort of put on lackluster affairs. That power doesn't really seem to be there at the top, in my opinion. There's a lot of criticism that could be had against Jacobs. And again, sort of like a crossover fight. If Jacobs loses this against Derevchenko, do we really talk about Jacobs in the top of the middleweight division going forward? I don't know. But definitely going to be interesting to see. Moving on to the last piece of boxing news, or sort of boxing topic I wanted to bring up, and it's very slight before we head into the boxing callers again, 323-870-4051, or if you're international, email me, mixhelmetradio@gmail.com. If you call in via that number, remember, press 1 to get in the queue. But last sort of boxing topic before we transition to callers, then MMA. Josh Warrington saying beating Frampton and Selby makes for a hell of a year. And that just got me thinking, Josh Warrington, if he comes in and beats Lee Selby and Carl Frampton in the same year, he has a huge claim to Fighter of the Year. And I'm not going to say I would give it to him, but he's then in that discussion. And not only that, I think you really start talking about what Josh Warrington can do to the likes of Gary Russell, Leo Santa Cruz, etc. There's a lot of names there. And even guys like an Isaac Dogboe who's fighting this weekend, maybe if he moved up, that would be a fantastic fight on paper. There's a lot for Josh Warrington if he's having this breakout year. And again, I am slightly picking Warrington. I think a lot of people are. If he pulls out a win in the fashion we all think he can, it is truly a breakout year. And in a year of Jaime Munguia having a breakout year, there's a lot of breakouts so far in this year that I cannot wait to delve into. Like when we get to our award show at the end of the year in December, that should be fun. But just wanted to sort of put that into the mind of the fans and you guys. Josh Warrington, Fighter of the Year. After Carl Frampton, it's definitely a discussion we need to be having. And just overall, then his placement in the division, his placement in boxing. Josh Warrington becomes a major player not only in his division but in the sport if he's able to beat Selby and Frampton in a single year. Potential lunatic playing contrarian saying Frampton would beat him, break him down. Come on, man. Really? Come on. But yes, that was a fantastic fight. Santiago has pressed 1. We had an international call, so we're going to go to Santiago and to talk about some of the boxing topics, and then we're going to head into MMA. Santiago, how you doing, man? Having a good day?
For the most part, work is chill. So I've had the time to actually call in for the boxing portion at the very least. I'm obviously bummed to hear that Cecilia Braekhus is off the Canelo card, but I'm glad it's not because of injuries or anything. And I'm still looking forward to it. It's interesting to see Tevin Farmer being signed by Matchroom USA. I'm curious to see what Matchroom USA ends up having once they have a pretty decent roster, because I honestly thought Tevin Farmer won his fight and should have been the WBO champion of the world, but you know how judging goes at this point. And
how do you think ESPN feels? How do you think ESPN feels when they just showed Tevin Farmer winning the championship on their network, and now he's signed to their direct competitor?
Man, that's got to feel like a slap in the face if you're asking me. I'm just kind of like, yo, at that point. And then, I'm just hearing about the whole Ortiz versus Molina fight being made. I'm just kind of like, and at least it's on a Sunday. It's something to, watch and start the day off. I'm curious to see what time that starts, because if it starts at noon, then I guess that's a good way to start off the day with some boxing at the very least. But, I don't know how to feel about that fight for all intents and purposes.
It's two old guys fighting.
That's going to be my call. Yeah, it's two old guys fighting, one mentally, one physically. And, I'm going to sign off with shout out to Rob being in the arena for KSI versus Logan Paul. See you for the MMA portion.
That is true. Robbie Hearn will be at KSI versus Logan Paul this weekend. Shout out to Rob being truly dedicated to the sport of boxing. So shout out to you, Rob. That should be fun. I can't wait to make fun of you for that one. But let's head into MMA and a good little transitional topic because it is still Golden Boy, and that'll be interesting to talk about a little bit. Mike Russell saying Golden Boy Productions is reaching out to managers and fighters for its inaugural MMA event, which will be headlined by Chuck Liddell versus Tito Ortiz 3. Their only stipulation, I am told, is that they want no dominance MMA fighters. If you do not know what Dominance MMA is, that's a managerial company headed by Ali Abdelaziz, who we just talked about yesterday on yesterday's show, in a legal deposition, actually arguing in defense of the UFC instead of fighters he managed. A guy that has direct financial ties to Eastern European / Russian oligarchs and crime families, Eastern European warlords and dictators, direct financial connection to. A guy that's had a lot of controversy surrounding him around MMA, even though he's managed and still manages some of the biggest fighters in the sport, even to this day. Guys like Frank Yeager, Verbisher Verdum, etc. He has over 100 fighters that he manages. I believe Khabib is still managed by Ali, and all of those Eastern European Akhmet fighters, like Zabit Magomed Shapirov, like all those guys are managed by Ali Abdelaziz. So it's interesting that they're taking this stance. It's also, I want to note that I believe Bellator, per Mike Russell, has stated that they won't take Ali fighters, which is interesting to me because I don't know if one championship does this. I don't know if others do it, obviously. But just curious about, the slight blacklisting that Ali and his company is now taking. I think it's a good step in the right direction. It's funny that it's coming from Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy. That's kind of odd to me. Maybe he's just that scared of another Richard Schaefer-like situation or Al Heyman-like situation. God knows. But I think he's smart here to sort of blacklist Ali Abdelaziz. He is one of the, I'm not going to say borderline, he is one of the most criminal entities and personalities in the sport of MMA. Just clearly he is. And he has, I think, turned a lot of his fighters into him directly, him controlling those social media accounts, turning them into vitriolic shit talkers that are borderline racist at times, borderline xenophobic and sexist at times. And it's him, he is the guy running the Twitter accounts. Like, this is a known fact in the industry. So, shout out to Golden Boy. For once, I'm going to give him a shout out. For once. They're doing something good here. Even though it's probably going to hurt them getting certain fights and certain fighters because Ali is still such a big figure in the sport. But salute to them. I am shocked they are taking this stance. But I did want to quickly sort of address that one as a transitional topic because I know a lot of boxing fans are at least maybe semi-curious and have some semi-understanding of Golden Boy trying to do an MMA event. But the marquee event or sort of topic I want to talk about is obviously Cris Cyborg versus Amanda Nunes, official for UFC 232. And I really want to frame it in the way of, is this the best single female MMA fight of all time? And even on top of that, is this the single best female MMA fight of all of combat sports? I think we need to start having that sort of discussion with this matchup. By the way, this will be for Cyborg's featherweight title. It's not Cyborg moving down, just so you know. I do wish this was in Brazil. I think that would have been awesome. I think Kyle asked that yesterday on yesterday's show about what it would do. Should they have put this in Brazil? It's unfortunate that's in Las Vegas. I completely agree with that. That it's unfortunate that these two Brazilian champions are not fighting in Sao Paulo or Rio de Janeiro. It just doesn't really make promotional sense, to be honest. But it's Vegas. Like I believe this is a Vegas card, right? Yes, it's a Vegas card. Vegas always pays the money. Like I think Like, we just know that. But again, when we talk about Ronda Rousey, Holly Holm, Gina Carano, Cris Cyborg, some of those transcendental moments in women's fighting. Layla Ali versus Frazier's daughter. I'm sorry for forgetting her name, but Joe Frazier's daughter. That was a transcendental moment for women's sports in the 90s, or at least women combat sports. This might eclipse them all, both in being just a pure, amazing technical matchup. Two of the best, if not the two best females in their sport, fighting each other, facing each other. Man, there's a lot here. Both, I think, on a huge run right now. Amanda Nunes and her run in the bantamweight division and cleaning up what Ronda Rousey left over is incredible. Cris Cyborg, the run she's been on is Fedor-like. Man. And the fact that obviously Cris Cyborg, Ronda Rousey would have been the fight. But come on. This is a close 1B to that 1A, in my opinion. And this is probably a better fight. This is going to be a brutal stand-up war between Cyborg and Amanda Nunes. The Muay Thai that's going to be displayed here is going to be incredible. I just want to keep framing it. This is potentially the best female fight of all time across all combat sports, and we need to start viewing it that way. And I hope it gets pushed that way. That this is not just a great fight. This is not just a super fight, champion versus champion. No, that's a bullshit way to sell this fight. Sell this fight as the single best women's fight of all time across boxing, judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, Muay Thai, MMA, whatever it is. This is the single best thing. This is up there with, I feel so bad for forgetting her name. Oh, my God. And this shows you I just don't follow the sport really, but that I know about it vaguely. The tennis players. God, what's their names? Somebody help me in the chat. I feel awful. Gunshots for me. The tennis player sisters. When the older one faced Maria Sharapova or whatever, right? When that was a transcendental moment in women's sports. God, somebody please help me out with the name in there. The Williams sister. Thank you. Oh my God, Santiago. God damn it. Thank you. But anyways, this I think is up there with that. And I know it may not be in terms of overall viewership. I know it may not be that in that way. But what the Williams sisters and their sort of rivalry with Maria Sharapova and the hype it had. This to me is equal to that. And I know that may not be truly quantifiable. Like, you can't prove that. And it's probably not accurate. But it needs to be at least pushed that way. Cannot wait to see it. Definitely cannot wait for that live fight chat. That's probably going to be one of the best live fight chats of all time. Right, Santiago? Come on. Wow. Nigel's saying, but I won't call it the best female fight of all time. Nigel, you have to call in now and debate this with me. Because you are, I think, at least obviously more knowledgeable about women's fighting than me. Maybe not women's MMA, but women's boxing for sure. I want to hear what your best female fight of all time is. I want to hear that. Because to me, this is it. Leonard Sterling saying, what fucking rivalry? Serena batter all the time. It would not necessarily the rivalry in terms of competitive rivalry, but in terms of media. The public spotlight on it. The idea that was the tennis match of the best female tennis players. It was promoted that way. That's what this needs to be promoted as. Real and I are saying, how can you even put this above the Williams sisters games? Because I don't watch tennis. I watch MMA. That's why. Come on. Cris Cyborg is the most dominant women's MMA fighter of all time. Who's the most dominant tennis player of all time, women's tennis player of all time? It's the Williams sisters. It's Serena Williams, right? So that's the comparison. Right? Come on, Nigel. Anyways, you have to call in, Nigel, because you just said this is not the best female fight of all time. You have yet to even mention one in the chat, which is the best fight of all time, so you better do that. Otherwise, you're talking out your ass. Just saying. But digressing, Neil Magny versus Santiago Ponzinibbio headlines UFC Buenos Aires in November. I just love that they're actually like going to like different places in South America. Like they're doing a Chile card, Argentina. Like I like that. I like that a lot. I like the expansion of it. And those are markets that are obviously just completely untapped, and that they have like known boxing markets. Like Argentina is a known boxing market. It may not be obviously equal to maybe other South American and Central American, regional scenes or markets, but it's definitely one of them. It's definitely up there. And why not tap into that? Same with like Colombia, same with these other places that have a known regional presence, that have been known to sort of, bring fighters to the world level. I think you can tap into that for MMA, and obviously it's more of a long-term plan, but why not do that? And obviously Santiago Ponzinibbio, who is from Argentina, has a look and the style to really push. And maybe he's not going to be the champion at 170. I kind of doubt that with who's there, but he has a lot of skill. I think he is good on the mic, so why not push him a little bit? Especially given this headline status against a known sort of top 15 perennial contender in Neil Magny. So I like it. I love that matchup. Love the placement of it. Makes perfect promotional sense. Next piece of news, and it's really not what I'm going to delve into a lot other than Ruslan Kabalov versus Cajun Johnson announced for the UFC Moscow event. I'm just glad Cajun Johnson did not get the axe and did not get fired. A guy that's been, I forget what role or job he has in Project Spearhead, which is the entity trying to unionize UFC fighters. But he is a very vocal and I think actual like literal leader of that organization on a losing streak. We saw what they did to Leslie Smith, and obviously that's been going through its legal process. Maybe that had something to do with them not firing Cajun Johnson, in my opinion. But again, at least it's good that he's not fired, because I don't think he should be. I think he's had a little bit of a career renaissance, and one loss should not really do that, in my opinion. Moving on, though, and it's going to be hard to describe to the podcast listeners. But the poster for Bellator, Fedor versus Chael Sonnen, has been dropped. And the only thing I can really compare it to is this similar picture by Jed Goodman, which is a side-by-side of Chael Sonnen and Apollo Creed in his Uncle Sam outfit. It is that bad, ladies and gentlemen. I truly do not know how else to describe it to you other than it looks like a old middle-aged white guy dressed up as Apollo Creed for Christmas and a fat Ivan Drago look-alike who looks out of breath just posing. I mean, look at him. His cheeks are literally like inflated, like he's out of breath. Am I the only one that sees this? Really? And the sad part is that this is still better and more interesting and more creative even than the UFC poster of Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov, which is literally just the flags of their respective countries photoshopped on their eyes and then put side to side and then a gray color tone over everything. So shout out to the marketing departments over at Bellator and the UFC. Great shit there. What else do we have? I believe that's it. Yes, that is it for news, ladies and gentlemen. 323-870-4051 or call in. Like I said, international, mixsummitradio@gmail.com. Email me. I can send you that free link. Niger doesn't want that smoke. It's okay.
I want smoke.
It's okay, Niger. We know you're scared. It's sad. It's okay. You got to hide like Joshua did against Wilder. It's okay. I forgive you. I believe Santiago either has pressed one again or he wants to talk. I don't know. But Santiago's still on the line. So we're going to go to Santiago again to talk about some MMA topics. Santiago, how you doing?
Not much. Back again for the MMA portion this time because I am actually excited for Nunes versus Cyborg. And Cyborg was actually the first time I'd actually ever seen her fight. was when she headlined with Gina Carano in that Strikeforce event. I remember it was the one time that I was splitting my attention trying to be like, okay, I don't want to miss the event, but I don't really care for these other fights, and I was constantly flipping between channels. And I still have reservations about how that fight ended because, in my opinion, I felt that round should have ended. It should have been a stoppage, but that's besides the point. I'm looking forward to this. I think this is going to be fun. You know, I want to do the live fight chat for this and everything, so I can't wait for this fight. This fight's going to be awesome, especially with their stand-up games the way it is.
Where do you place it on female fights in combat sports? Is it the greatest female fight of all time?
I think it's up there. Definitely top 3 of the greatest female fights that could be, if not the absolute best that they could be overall. And I'm basically just doing this based off their stand-up game alone, really. You know, I'm just like, it's a great fight. I'm looking forward to this. And to be honest, I honestly didn't think they would make this fight, even for the UFC. So, you know, shout out to them making this fight and the women being at a comfortable weight more than anything, too. You know, when I hope we don't have to have those stories of, like, you know, excessive weight cutting for them. You know, because I think you were the one that told me that this weight class was made specifically for Cyborg, too. So it's going to be interesting to see how they fare against one another.
Agreed. Definitely going to be interesting. I believe that's it for you, Santiago?
Yeah, that's pretty much it, man, unless you have any questions about any other MMA topics.
Nah, I'm good, man. I'm just going to wrap up, obviously, on that, you know, the Cyborg versus Nunes, it being that great. And there's some good people, good comments in the chat about, like, things that could have sort of matched to it. Riker versus Ali, I don't think that should be in the discussion for top female fights of all time. Gil, a.k.a. Castle Gil, a.k.a. he needs to be a moderator. He's a pound-for-pound supporter, so he just became moderator. Shout out to you, Gil. Saying Ali versus Wolf was the greatest women's fight that never happened. I probably agree with that. He also says that Christina Hammer versus Shields will be a big fight, and that will be in the discussion, I think, for big fights in women's sports, in women's combat sports. That would be a top 5 in my opinion at the end of the day, especially in boxing, because in boxing there really hasn't been that much. It was Ali and Frazier in the female version. It was that. Wake Up Sheeple saying Ronda versus Holly was top 3. That's probably up there. That was a mega fight at the time for women's sports. It was the boxing champ going against MMA champ in a way. With Holly Holm versus Ronda Rousey. Ronda was on that huge run. And she was obviously just a figure and a star that's never been copied in women's combat sports. And it probably will never be copied. Like, I'm not saying never will be, but that's just hard. It's hard to be that transcendental. My list for top female fights of all time, and it doesn't include top 3. Does not include any boxing, unfortunately. Gina Carano versus Cris Cyborg, Ronda Rousey versus Holly Holm, and now Cris Cyborg versus Amanda Nunes. And probably that to me is the greatest fight in female combat sports history. Cannot wait for that one. And of course, I'm Matt the Hipster Hunter. You can find me at Matt Hunter, MCR, all platforms. Mix Combat Radio, all platforms. Patreon.com/Mix Combat Radio to help support the show. What else? What else? What do I say? Shout out to Tevin Farmer. Go collect that bag, man. Go collect that bag. Don't let the haters and the fanboys shit on you, Tevin, because people have not given Tevin any sort of chance and any push, and hopefully Eddie does. So yes, that's been about it. I'll be back tomorrow. Final show of the week, except for obviously Saturday's media reaction show to the top ranked card. I will probably do, though, a live fight chat for the top 2 fights, the Isaac Dogbe and Ray Beltran fight, and then a media reaction show. For tomorrow, we will not do a live fight chat for the PBC card, but I will 100% do an immediate reaction show on Friday, because I know I won't be here Sunday and Monday. Shout out to my kid's birthday. Sorry, guys. But yes, back tomorrow. Have a good one. Have a great day. And again, patreon.com/Mix Combat Radio. Peace.